Hey, boys and girls, did you like the video about Kevin Henkes? He's one of my favorite authors, and he won a big award last year, the Children's Literature Legacy Award, because his books are so awesome. He loves to make fun characters, and we're going to talk about characters today as we read one of his stories together. He really has great lessons in his book, so we're going to be talking about the problem in the story and the solution. And we're going to do all of that by making a story map and recording things as we go. So you'll need a white piece of paper, and you can draw a story map, okay, by just making 6 boxes on your piece of paper like I did. Make sure they're really big. Use your whole piece of paper and draw 2 lines down and 1 line across, and then put a little line at the top for your headings. Okay, you can pause the video to do that. And then when you're finished, come back and add these 3 words to your boxes. Put character setting, problem, and solution. And you will have a piece of paper, like I do, ready to go. So I'm going to read quickly through the story because it's long, and we will be pausing to fill in these 6 boxes as we go. All right, the story is called Chrysanthemum, which we know is a flower. And it has a little mouse. Kevin Henkes loves to write about mice. The day she was born was the happiest day in her parents' lives. She's perfect, said her mother. Absolutely, said her father. And she was. She was absolutely perfect. Her name must be everything she is, said her mother. Her name must be absolutely perfect, said her father. And it was. Chrysanthemum. Her parents named her Chrysanthemum. Chrysanthemum grew and grew and grew, and when she was old enough to appreciate it, Chrysanthemum loved her name. Look how she grew from a little infant. She's growing, riding a bike, bubble baths, and all the way, here she's learning to read, all the way to the last picture. Let's find out how old she is. She loved the way it sounded when her mother woke her up. She loved the way it sounded when her father called her for dinner. And she loved the way it sounded when she whispered it to herself in the bathroom mirror. Chrysanthemum, chrysanthemum, chrysanthemum. Chrysanthemum loved the way her name looked when it was written with ink on an envelope. She loved the way it looked when it was written with icing on her birthday cake. And she loved the way it looked when she wrote it when she wrote it herself. I just did a monitor and clarify because it didn't make sense. With her fat orange crayon. Look at that. It almost goes off the page. Chrysanthemum, chrysanthemum, chrysanthemum. I bet it took a long time to learn to write that name. Chrysanthemum thought her name was absolutely perfect. And then she started school. On the first day, Chrysanthemum wore her sunniest dress and brought her brightest smile. She ran all the way. Hooray, said Chrysanthemum. School! But when Mrs. Chad, oh, wait a minute, that's not Chad. That's a U. So many of us make mistakes on our vowels. So this is Chud. Oh, but when Mrs. Chud took roll call, everyone giggled upon hearing Chrysanthemum's name. Here's Mrs. Chud with her glasses, and here are all the friends, and they all laughed at Chrysanthemum. Why do you think that is? Good readers ask themselves questions. Maybe because it was so long it even went off the page, and we can compare that to all the shorter names on the page. It's so long, said Joe. It scarcely fits on your name tag, said Rita, pointing. I'm named after my grandmother, said Victoria. You're named after a flower. Victoria's not very kind. Chrysanthemum wilted like a flower does in the sun. She did not think her name was absolutely perfect. She thought it was absolutely dreadful. All right, let's take a pause. And let's get out our charts. I'm so excited. Now, I already filled some things in on my chart so that we could go a little more quickly, and you can do your pictures as I show you. So pause your video. Now, characters and setting. We know we have Chrysanthemum, so I drew Chrysanthemum little in the first box. I made a balloon, and then I put the bottom for the nose. I made 2 pointy little eyes, 2 eyelashes, and her ears. And then I put a C for chrysanthemum. I also put an M for mom and a D for dad. Okay. Over here, over here I did Mrs. Chud. So I made a CH to remind me that that is Mrs. Chud. And I made her the same way as chrysanthemum, except for her eyes. Can you see what I did? I made them upside down, like little tiny hooks, and then I put glasses on her. Okay, so we have 3 characters. Oh, I forgot this one. Who is this? Do you remember? Here's Victoria, mean Victoria. Now, there were other characters in the story, but this one here is going to play an important role. She's going to be a main character. So go ahead and draw her, put a little V beside her name, and look how I made her eyes to show that she is not very nice. Then we'll come down to the setting box. Now, do you remember where the setting started? What is this picture of? Her house. She started in her house. So go ahead and draw her house. And underneath her house, I have the schoolhouse. And then I have an arrow because the story goes back and forth between her house and the schoolhouse. Look what I did over here. I drew a little flower because Victoria is going to be going inside and outside the buildings, but she'll be outside when she goes back and forth to school. Okay, so we started our chart. Let's move it aside and let's come back to the book. Remember, Chrysanthemum is not liking her name right now. All right. The rest of the day was not much better. During nap time, Victoria raised her hand and informed Mrs. Chud that Chrysanthemum's name was spelled with 13 letters. That's exactly half as many letters as there are in the entire alphabet, Victoria explained. Thank you for sharing that with us, Victoria, said Mrs. Chud. Now, put your head down. Victoria got in trouble. If I had a name like yours, I'd change it, Victoria said, as the students lined up to go home. I wish I could, thought Chrysanthemum miserably. Welcome home, said her mother. Welcome home, said her father. School is no place for me, said Chrysanthemum. My name is too long. It scarcely fits on my name tag, and I'm named after a flower. Oh, pish, said her mother. Your name is beautiful. And precious and priceless and fascinating and winsome, said her father. It's everything you are, said her mother. Absolutely perfect, said her father. Chrysanthemum felt much better after her favorite dinner, macaroni and cheese with ketchup, and an evening filled with hugs and kisses and parcheesi. Parcheesi is a game. You can see them playing it. That night, Chrysanthemum dreamed that her name was Jane. That's my middle name. It was an extremely pleasant dream. Why was it a pleasant dream? Think about that. Good readers ask themselves questions. Because remember, she didn't like her name Chrysanthemum. The next morning, Chrysanthemum wore her most comfortable jumper. She walked to school as slowly as she could. She dragged her feet in the dirt. Chrysanthemum, 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 she wrote. She even looks like a flower, said Victoria as Chrysanthemum entered the playground. Let's pick her, said Rita, pointing. Let's smell her, said Joe. Chrysanthemum wilted like a flower without sun. She did not think her name was absolutely perfect. She thought it was absolutely dreadful. What's the problem in the story? Let's get our maps out. If you said the problem was that Chrysanthemum didn't like her name, you are absolutely right. So go ahead under the problem. You can pause my video. I'm going to do it real quickly to show you. And we're going to draw Chrysanthemum. I'm making her bigger here because she's my only character on this page. Here are her ears. Watch how quickly I can do this. Here are her eyes. And then I have a speech bubble coming out that says yuck. Why do you think I wrote that? Because Chrysanthemum did not like her name. And underneath, I wrote her name. Look how long it is. Chrysan has the word the in the middle. The, and then mum. Mum, which is part of the flower. Okay, another name for the flower. So here is our problem in the story. Now, There's another problem in the story, isn't there? She doesn't like her name. Why? Because people make fun of her. And this person right here, Victoria, is making a lot of fun of her. So let's come over here and let's draw Victoria right here because she's a main character. Put her mean eyes on and her ears. I'm going quickly with my story map. And I gave her a speech bubble. And she said, ha ha. I made her laughing at Victoria because she's being very mean. Other characters are in there too, but they're not quite as important as Victoria. Okay, so there's the problem. So look at our story map. We have it almost complete with 4 boxes. Okay, let's continue. Oh, so she's at school. They're making fun again. And here we are. The rest of the day was not much better. During nap time, Victoria raised her hand and said, "A chrysanthemum is a flower. It lives in a garden with worms and other dirty things." "Thank you for sharing that with us, Victoria," said Mrs. Chad. "Now put your head down." She got in trouble again. "I just cannot believe your name," Victoria said as the students lined up to go home. "Neither can I," thought Victoria miserably. Oh, did I say that right? Oh my gosh, I think I said Victoria. Let me go back and look at that because that didn't make sense. Oh, it's thought chrysanthemum miserably. Boys and girls, sometimes we don't think things make sense as we're reading, and that's a clue to our brains to go back and reread. We call that monitoring and clarifying. So I just went back and monitored and clarified because I said Victoria's name instead of chrysanthemums. "Welcome home," said her mother. "Welcome home," said her father. "School is no place for me," said Chrysanthemum. "They said I even look like a flower. They pretended to pick me and smell me." "Oh, pish," said her mother. "They're just jealous and envious and begrudging and discontented and jaundiced," said her father. "Who wouldn't be jealous of a name like yours?" said her mother. "After all, it's absolutely perfect," said her father. Chrysanthemum felt a little better after her favorite dessert, chocolate cake with buttercream frosting, and another evening filled with hugs and kisses and parcheesi, their favorite game. That night, Chrysanthemum dreamed that she really was a chrysanthemum. She sprouted leaves and petals. Victoria picked her and plucked the leaves and petals one by one until there was nothing left but a scrawny stem. It was the worst nightmare of Victoria's. Ah, I did it again! Chrysanthemum's life. Monitor and clarify. Chrysanthemum wore her outfit with 7 pockets the next morning. She loaded the pockets with her most prized possessions and her good luck charms. Why do you think she did that? Good readers ask themselves questions. She took all of her lucky things so that maybe she would have a better day. Chrysanthemum took the longest route, what's a route? Road, way, possible to school. She stopped and stared at each and every flower. "Chrysanthemum, chrysanthemum, chrysanthemum," the flowers seemed to say. That morning, the students were introduced to Mrs. Twinkle, the music teacher. There she is. Do you notice anything about her? Look closely at her dress. Her voice was like something of a dream, as was everything about her. The students were speechless. They thought Mrs. Twinkle was an incredible wonder. They went out of their way to make a nice impression. Do you know what an impression is? They went out of their way to make her think that they were very special and very good students and make a good impression on them, make her think really highly of them. Mrs. Twinkle led the students in scales. Scales are things that we use when we sing music notes. Then she assigned roles for the class musical. Victoria was chosen as the fairy queen. Can you believe that? Rita was chosen as the spiffy butterfly princess. Joe was chosen as the all-important pixie messenger. And Chrysanthemum was chosen as a daisy. She didn't get an important part, did she? She got a flower. Do you think it's because of her name? Chrysanthemum's a daisy, chrysanthemum's a daisy, Joe, Rita, and Victoria chanted, thinking it was wildly funny. Chrysanthemum wilted, just like a flower does in the sun. She did not think her name was absolutely perfect. She thought it was absolutely dreadful. What's so humorous? Said Mrs. Twinkle. Chrysanthemum was the answer. Her name is so long, said Joe. It scarcely fits on her name tag, said Rita, pointing. I'm named after my grandmother, said Victoria. She's named after a flower. My name is long, said Mrs. Twinkle. It is, said Joe. My name would scarcely fit on the name tag, said Mrs. Twinkle. It would, said Rita, pointing. And, said Mrs. Twinkle, I'm named after a flower, too. You are? Said Victoria. Yes, said Mrs. Twinkle. My name is Delphinium. Delphinium Twinkle. And if my baby, oh, do you see her baby right there? Here it is. If my baby is a girl, I'm considering Chrysanthemum as a name. I think it's absolutely perfect. Ooh, how do you think the boys and girls feel now, since their favorite teacher has a long flower name and might name her baby the same as Chrysanthemum? Let's take a minute and go back to our chart. We need to add that special teacher to our characters, don't we? So I'm going to make my little balloon real quick. I'm going to make a mouth, an open mouth with some lines because she's singing. I'm going to put my little ears on, and her eyes are going to be closed because she's singing. Okay, so there is Mrs. Twinkle. And you know, if you wanted, you could even come over here to Victoria and you could put an R for Rita and a J for Joe because they were in the story, but they weren't really all that important. Okay, now the last thing we're going to do is the solution. So be listening so we can see how the story ends. Here we go. Chrysanthemum could hardly believe her ears. She blushed, she beamed, she bloomed. Chrysanthemum, chrysanthemum, chrysanthemum. Joe, Rita, and Victoria looked at Chrysanthemum longingly. What does that mean, longingly? They longed to be her. They wanted to be her. That's a big change from the beginning of the story, isn't it? Call me Marigold, said Joe. I'm Carnation, said Rita. My name is Lily of the Valley, said Victoria. They all picked flower names. And look at the last page with the rainbow. I almost said reindeer. Chrysanthemum did not think her name was absolutely perfect. She knew it. And look how when she goes home, I love how the illustrator does this. The rain went away and the rainbow came out. And think about her feelings. Her feelings were dark and rainy. They were stormy. She felt stormy inside. But guess what? After her teacher made that connection and the boys and girls changed how they felt, all of those stormy feelings went away and a rainbow came out. So let's come over to our chart one last time. And we have to put the solution in. Now, the main part of the solution was her teacher. So I'm going to make Mrs. Twinkle really big. All right, here's my balloon for her head. And then I drew a body on her with a little bump because she has a baby in there, doesn't she? Okay, so there that is. Here's her mouth because we know she's singing. Here are her eyes and here are her ears. And I put a T because she's Mrs. Twinkle. And then down here, I have a little baby. Here's the little baby. Look how tiny. Go ahead and draw your little baby. And I wrote Mrs. Twinkle's name by the baby. And her first name is Delphinium. So I'm writing that down here. Pause the video if you need to and go ahead and fill yours in. And then I put an arrow because that's the baby that she's going to have. And she might name the baby Chrysanthemum. So I'm going to put a C with a little heart there. Look at my chart. Look at the work we did. Oh, boys and girls, you should have a chart that looks just like mine. And I'm going to ask you to hold on to this chart. So I hope that you still have it on Friday, because on Friday we're going to do something special with this chart and the chart that we're going to make in our next video. Okay, so here is my story map, and you can use this to retell the story to someone. You could say, I just read the story Chrysanthemum. The characters were Chrysanthemum, Victoria, Mrs. Chud, and Mrs. Twinkle. It started at Chrysanthemum's house. Oh, and her mom and dad were there too. And it also took place in the schoolhouse. The problem in the story was Chrysanthemum did not like her name. Yuck! Because people like Victoria made fun of her. Ha ha! Finally, the music teacher, Mrs. Twinkle, came to school and everyone loved her. She had a baby coming soon. Whenever the boys and girls made fun of Victoria, Mrs. Twinkle told them that her name was long too, and she was named after a flower delphinium, and she might name her baby what? Chrysanthemum, the name of our story. What a wonderful story. And boy, this was a great long activity for you, boys and girls. We learned a lot today. We learned how to identify characters, setting, problem, solution, make a story map, and retell a story. Plus, we heard a wonderful story by Kevin Henkes, a very famous and wonderful author. I hope you have a great day. Hold on to your paper, tuck it somewhere special, okay, and safe so that you have it when we come back to our papers on Friday. Have a great day. I'll see you soon. Bye.